On mine 18th birthday, my father shoved a $50 bill toward me and said, "Go. I'm done spending money on a child that isn't mine." I calmly took it, handed him a sealed letter and whispered, "My real dad just arrived." His face collapsed. Can you imagine having the man who raised you, the man who was supposed to be your father, throw a crumpled $50 bill in your face on your 18th birthday and tell you to get out? To him it was the ultimate act of dismissal. An end to his supposed obligation. But he had no idea it was just the beginning of his own spectacular downfall. To truly understand what happened that day, to grasp the sheer injustice and the satisfying, painful truth of it all, we need to go back. Way back. To when I was just 8 years old. It was the spring recital at Willow Creek Elementary. I'd practiced FuII for 3 months straight. My tiny fingers knew every note by heart. My mother, Sophia, sat in the front row, phone out, recording every second. She wore her favorite blue dress, the one saved only for special occasions. The seat next to her was empty. Victor, the man I called Dad, had a last-minute meeting. That's what Mom told me when I asked. But even at 8 I knew. He never had last-minute meetings when my little brother Leo had his soccer games. Leo was 4 then, and Victor attended every match, even the ones where Leo just picked dandelions instead of playing. After the recital, I found Mom in the hallway. Her eyes were red, but she smiled and told me I was wonderful. "Why doesn't Daddy ever come to my things?" I asked. She didn't answer. She just hugged me tighter than usual, a tiny, invisible crack forming in my heart. That night I couldn't sleep. I crept downstairs for water and heard voices in the kitchen. "Victor, Mom." They didn't know I was listening. "I told you I can't pretend forever," Victor snapped. "Every time I look at her, I see the mistake you made." Mom's voice was soft, pleading. "She's a child, Victor. She's innocent in all of this." "She's not my child," he growled. "She never was. And the day she turns 18, she's out of this house." Mistake? Me. At 8 years old, those words were a poison seeping into my core. I didn't understand what mistake meant back then, or why Victor looked at me differently than he looked at Leo. But I understood one thing clearly. Whatever was wrong with me, it made my mother cry. I went back to bed without the water and I started counting. Not the days until I could leave, but the days until I could understand why I was never enough. The difference between Leo and me wasn't just emotional. It was glaringly financial. And by the time I was 16, I had the receipts to prove it. It was September of my junior year. SAT registration was due. I needed $200 to $150 for the test, $50 for prep books. I approached Victor in his home office, where he sat reviewing spreadsheets for Sterling Reed Holdings, the commercial real estate firm where he was vice president. "I need money for the SAT, I said straight to the point. I'd learned years ago that Victor preferred efficiency over pleasantries. He didn't even look up. "Just get a job. The registration deadline is in 2 weeks, I pleaded. "I don't have time to," he cut me off. "Leo needs new soccer cleats. The good ones cost $350. I can't be throwing money at everyone. $350 for cleats for a 14-year-old who'd outgrow them in 6 months? But $200 for my college entrance exam was throwing money? It clicked. That night, I got a job at a coffee shop called The Daily Grind, 3 blocks from school. Minimum wage, 15 hours a week. It took me 3 months to save enough for the SAT and books, while also covering my own phone bill because Victor had removed me from the family plan when I turned 15. Leo, meanwhile, got a new iPhone every September, the latest model. No questions asked. When my SAT scores came back, a 1480 out of 1,696 percentile, I left the report on the kitchen counter where everyone could see it. No one mentioned it. Not Victor, not Brenda, his second wife, not even Leo, who probably didn't understand what the numbers meant. Mom would have been proud. She'd been gone 4 years by then, taken by breast cancer when I was 12. But I liked to think she was watching somehow. I didn't ask Victor for money again after that. If I had to build my future alone, I would. But I also kept a meticulous record of every disparity, every slight, every dollar that went to Leo instead of me. A simmering resentment. I didn't know it then, but that record would become a weapon. My mother died on a Tuesday in November. She was 41. I was 12. The cancer had been aggressive, 14 months from diagnosis to the end. I spent most of that year sitting beside her hospital bed, reading aloud from her favorite books while the machines beeped their steady rhythm. 3 days before she passed, Mom asked the nurses to give us privacy. She was weak, her voice barely a whisper, but her grip on my hand was surprisingly strong. "There's a letter," she said. "In my jewelry box, the one with the roses on the lid." I knew the box. It sat on her dresser, filled with pieces she never wore anymore. A pearl necklace from her mother, a silver bracelet from her college graduation. "Don't open it until you're 16, she continued. Promise me, Alara. 16. Why 16? Because you'll be old enough to understand. And strong enough to handle it. I promised. I didn't know what I was promising to, but I would have agreed to anything she asked. She died 3 days later with me holding her hand and Victor standing in the doorway checking his watch. As if her death was an inconvenience. 11 months after the funeral, Victor married Brenda. She was a real estate agent he'd met at a company event. Blonde, polished, eager to play the role of Mrs. Sterling. Brenda's first tyrannical act as my stepmother was to reorganize the house. Mom's clothes went to donation. Her books went to storage. Her jewelry box nearly went to the attic, but I grabbed it first. That's mine, I said, clutching it to my chest. Brenda looked at Victor, who shrugged, dismissing my mother's legacy with a wave of his hand. Let her keep it. It's just junk. I hid the box in the back of my closet behind winter coats I'd outgrown, and I waited. For years. That's how long I kept my promise. I had no idea that one letter would change everything. On my 16th birthday, I opened the jewelry box. It was a Saturday morning. Brenda had taken Leo to a travel soccer tournament in Colorado Springs. Victor was at the Pinnacle Golf Club, where he spent most weekends pretending to be more important than he was. I sat on my bed with the rose-covered box in my lap. My hands trembled as I lifted the lid and found the envelope tucked beneath a strand of pearls. My name was written on the front in Mom's elegant script. Alara. The letter was 3 pages long, written on her personal stationery, dated August 15, 2009, 2 months before her diagnosis. I read it twice before the words even began to sink in. My darling Alara, if you're reading this, I'm gone and you're old enough to know the truth. Victor Sterling is not your biological father. Before I married him, I had a brief relationship with a man named Jonathan Reed. It ended when he got engaged to someone else. I didn't know I was pregnant until after he was gone. Victor was pursuing me at the time, and I made a decision I've regretted ever since. I married him and let him believe you were his. He found out when you were 3. He discovered a DNA test I'd hidden. He's known the truth for 15 years, Alara. He chose to stay silent because he didn't want the embarrassment of admitting his wife had been with another man. I'm sorry I never told you. I was afraid of losing you, but you deserve to know who you are. Jonathan never knew about you. That wasn't fair to him either. This letter has been notarized and filed with my attorney, Sarah Jenkins at Jenkins & Associates. She has instructions to help you if you ever need it. You are not a mistake, Alara. You are the best thing I ever did. And your real father deserves to know you exist. All my love forever, Mom. I sat there for an hour reading the letter over and over. My world, it fractured. Then shattered. Everything finally made sense and nothing would ever be the same. That night, I typed Jonathan Reed Mountain City into Google. The results were overwhelming. Jonathan Reed, CEO and co-founder of Reed Capital Partners, a private equity fund specializing in commercial real estate and renewable energy assets under management. $2.3 billion. I stared at the number billion with a B. There were photos. A tall man with silver hair and sharp blue eyes, the same shade as mine. He wore tailored suits in most pictures, standing at podiums or shaking hands with governors and mayors. But the detail that made my heart stop was buried in a Mountain City Business Review article from March 2012. Reed Capital continues to dominate Colorado's commercial real estate market, outbidding smaller competitors in at least 7 major deals over the past decade. The article named one of those smaller competitors, Sterling Reed Holdings. I almost laughed. The company Victor worked for had Reed in its name because Jonathan had been a co-founder 20 years ago. They'd split over a business dispute, and Jonathan had gone on to build an empire, while Victor remained a vice president at the firm they'd started together. Victor despised Jonathan Reed. I'd heard him seethe about that arrogant bastard at dinner parties, blaming Jonathan for every deal that fell through, every contract lost to a higher bidder. And now I knew why Victor looked at me with such contempt. Every time he saw my face, he saw the man who had beaten him at everything. Business success and apparently my mother's heart. It wasn't just business, it was personal. So deeply, brutally personal. The question now was simple. Did Jonathan Reed want to know I existed? I waited 6 months before reaching out. I needed a plan. A cold, calculated one. In September of my senior year, I wrote a letter to Jonathan Reed. Not an email, a physical letter, sent to Reed Capital Partners headquarters in downtown Mountain City. I included a copy of Mom's letter and a simple request, an independent DNA test to confirm the truth. 2 weeks passed. Then 3. I checked the mailbox every day, my stomach churning with a mixture of hope and dread. On day 18 a response arrived. Not from Jonathan directly but from his attorney. The letter was brief and professional. Mr. Reed was willing to undergo DNA testing at Precision DNA Labs, a certified facility. An appointment had been scheduled for October 15th. The test took 5 minutes. A cheek swab, some paperwork, a promise that results would arrive within 2 weeks. On November 8th, I received the report. Case number GT 2023-11-08A. Probability of paternity, 99.97%. 3 days later my phone rang. An unknown number with a Mountain City area code. Elara. The voice was deep, measured, almost trembling. This is Jonathan Reed. I just received the results. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed completely. I didn't know about you, he continued, his voice gaining strength. Your mother never told me. But now that I know, I'm not going anywhere. I promise you that. And I believed him. March 15th arrived, cold and gray, the sky heavy with clouds that couldn't decide whether to rain or snow. I woke at 6:47 a.m., 13 minutes before my alarm. For a moment I lay still, staring at the ceiling of the room I'd slept in for 18 years. The walls were bare now. I'd taken down the posters and photos weeks ago, packing them into boxes that sat in the corner, ready to go. Today was the day. I could feel it buzzing in my veins, a quiet hum of defiance. I showered, dressed in jeans and a navy sweater, and went downstairs. The kitchen smelled like coffee and toast. Brenda stood at the counter, scrolling through her phone. Leo sat at the table, shoveling cereal into his mouth while watching something on his iPad. Neither of them looked up when I entered. No happy birthday, no card, no cake. I hadn't expected any of those things, but still a tiny, foolish part of me felt that familiar pang. Victor sat at the head of the table, reading the Mountain City Post. He didn't acknowledge me either, but I noticed his jaw was tight, his shoulders rigid. He was ready, and so was I. I poured myself a glass of orange juice and glanced out the window. There was a black Mercedes S-Class, parked at the corner of our street, just visible through the bare branches of the oak tree in our front yard. Jonathan was already here, waiting. The envelope in my jacket pocket felt heavier than paper should. Inside were the DNA results, a copy of Mom's letter, and a photograph of Jonathan and me, taken 2 months ago at a coffee shop downtown. The first time we'd met in person. I took a slow, deep breath. Whatever happened next, I was ready. Victor folded his newspaper and looked at me for the first time that morning. We need to talk, he said. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a $50 bill. He didn't hand it to me. He threw it. A crumpled, pathetic $50 bill. It landed on the table in front of me, next to my untouched orange juice. You're 18 now, he sneered, his voice dripping with venom. I'm done. I stared at the 50. Ulysses. Grant's face looked back at me, indifferent. Excuse me? I asked, my voice dangerously calm. You heard me. Victor's voice was flat. Rehearsed. He'd been practicing this speech. I fulfilled my legal obligation. You're an adult. Get out. Brenda set down her phone. Victor, maybe we should stay out of this. He didn't even look at her. His eyes were locked on mine, filled with 18 years of resentment. I've known since you were 3 years old, he spat. You're not my daughter. You never were. I only kept you around because your mother begged me and because I didn't want people asking questions. Leo finally looked up from his iPad, his mouth agape. His cereal forgotten. Good. Let him hear it. But Sophia's gone now, Victor continued, and I'm not paying for another man's mistake anymore. Another man's mistake. The exact words I'd overheard when I was 8. I picked it up, slowly, deliberately. My hands miraculously didn't shake. You think this is an insult? I asked, my voice calm but with an edge I didn't know I possessed. It's more than you deserve. A slow, dangerous smile finally touched my lips. Oh, I know, I said. I've known for 2 years. Victor's expression flickered. Confusion. Then suspicion. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the envelope. I set it on the table directly in front of him. Just open it. He hesitated, then tore the envelope open. I watched his face as he read the DNA results, as he recognized Mom's handwriting on the letter, as the color drained from his cheeks. And my real father, I said, is waiting outside. Victor's head snapped toward the window. The black Mercedes. The driver's door opening. A tall man with silver hair stepping onto the sidewalk. Jonathan Reed. Victor's face went from pale to sickly green. No, he choked. No, no, no. I watched Victor watch Jonathan. The man who had tormented me for 18 years, who had made me feel worthless, unwanted, invisible, was frozen in place. His hand gripped the DNA report so tightly that the paper crumpled at the edges. Jonathan walked up our driveway with the unhurried confidence of someone who had nothing to prove. He wore a charcoal overcoat and leather gloves, his silver hair perfectly styled despite the March wind. That's impossible, Victor breathed. You and him. Sophia? He couldn't finish the sentence. Before you, Victor, I said, long before she ever knew you existed. Brenda had gone pale. She looked between Victor and the window, trying to piece together what was happening. Leo had abandoned his iPad entirely, his teenage apathy replaced by wide-eyed shock. You planned this? Victor's voice was a ragged whisper. You've been planning this for 2 years? I confirmed, my gaze unwavering. Ever since I found Mom's letter. Ever since I learned that you knew the truth and punished me for it anyway. The doorbell rang. Nobody moved. It rang again. I'll get it, I said. I walked to the front door, my heart pounding but my steps steady. I could feel Victor's eyes burning into my back. I could hear Brenda whispering something frantic, probably trying to figure out how this would affect her social standing. I opened the door. Jonathan Reed stood on the porch, his blue eyes, my eyes, meeting mine. Ready, Alara? His blue eyes so like mine met mine. Ready, I breathed. I turned back to look at Victor one last time. He was still standing at the kitchen table, the $50 bill forgotten on the floor. Goodbye, Victor. Jonathan didn't wait for an invitation. He stepped past me into the foyer, his presence filling the space in a way Victor never could. Victor. Jonathan's voice was calm, almost pleasant. It's been a while. Victor finally found his footing. Get out of my house. Jonathan's smile didn't waver. I'm here to collect my daughter. The one you just threw out with a $50 bill. Jonathan glanced at the crumpled money on the floor. Generous of you. She's not your... Victor stopped himself. The DNA results were still in his hand, the evidence undeniable. 99.97%, Jonathan said. Precision DNA Labs doesn't make mistakes. Neither did Sophia, apparently, when she chose not to tell me. Brenda finally spoke. Victor, who is this man? Jonathan Reed. Victor spat the name like poison. My former business partner. The one who's been sabotaging my deals for years. Sabotaging. Jonathan's eyebrow arched. I believe the word you're looking for, Victor, is outperforming. There's a difference. I stood by the door watching the confrontation unfold. Part of me wanted to intervene, but a larger part understood that this moment wasn't about me. It was about Victor facing the consequences of his cruelty. You think you've won something? Victor stepped closer to Jonathan, his fists clenched. Taking her doesn't change anything. She's still Linda's mistake. She's still... Jonathan's voice dropped, losing its pleasant veneer. That's my daughter you're talking about. And I've spent the last 6 months learning exactly how you've treated her. The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken threats. I know about the SAT money you refused, Jonathan continued. The phone plan you cut. The trust fund you've been draining. All of it. Victor's face went from gray to white. How? It doesn't matter how. What matters is that everything you've done to Alara will have consequences starting today. Jonathan reached into his coat and produced a manila folder. He set it on the kitchen counter directly in front of Brenda, who flinched as if it might bite her. Sophia left Alara a trust fund, Jonathan said. $180,000 to be managed by her legal guardian until she turned 18. He flipped open the folder. That guardian was you, Victor. Victor's jaw tightened. I had every right to access those funds. Raising a child is expensive. Is it? Jonathan pulled out a spreadsheet, bank statements highlighted and annotated. According to these records, you withdrew $47,000 over the past 5 years for child-rearing expenses. He looked at me. Alara, did Victor pay for your SAT registration? No. Your phone bill? No. School supplies? Clothes? Extracurriculars? I paid for everything myself with money I earned working at a coffee shop. Jonathan turned back to Victor. So where did $47,000 go? Silence. Brenda's eyes darted to the spreadsheet. I saw her expression shift. Not guilt exactly, but recognition. She knew where that money had gone. Leo's soccer camps, Leo's private coaching, Leo's endless parade of new electronics. That's embezzlement, Jonathan said quietly. Under Colorado law, a trustee who misappropriates funds can be held personally liable, plus interest plus legal fees. You can't prove. I already have. Jonathan tapped the folder. My attorney, Sarah Jenkins, has been reviewing these records for months. The same Sarah Jenkins your wife, Sophia, hired to protect Alara's interests before she died. Victor looked like he might be sick. We'll discuss this more, Jonathan said. After the gala. One more thing. Jonathan pulled a second document from the folder. A printed email, complete with headers and timestamps. Victor's face went from white to green. September 12, 2008, Jonathan read aloud. From Victor Sterling Reed. To your personal attorney. Subject, inheritance issue. Confidential. He held up the paper so everyone could see. I need to know my options for minimizing inheritance obligations to a child who is not biologically mine. Specifically, can I exclude her from my will without disclosing the reason? And what happens to her mother's trust fund if the child is removed from the household before age 18? Brenda gasped. Even Leo looked disturbed. Where did you get that? Victor's voice was barely a whisper. Your company's IT department isn't as loyal as you think, Jonathan said. Especially when they're offered better opportunities elsewhere. I hadn't known about this email. Jonathan had mentioned he was gathering evidence, but I didn't realize how deep he'd dug. You've been planning to cut me out since I was 12, I said. The words came out steady factual. Before Sophia even died. Victor couldn't meet my eyes. The gala is in 1 week, Victor, Jonathan said, tucking the documents back into the folder. I suggest you spend that time consulting with your lawyer. Because after Saturday night, everyone who matters in Mountain City will know exactly what kind of man you are. He extended his hand to me. Elara, let's go. I took one last look at the kitchen. At Brenda's frozen expression, Leo's confusion, Victor's crumbling composure. Then I walked out the door, my head held high. With my father. My real father. The story's just getting started, everyone. Victor threw me out thinking he'd won, but he had no idea who my real father was. And the best part? It's still coming. In 1 week, everyone Victor spent his whole life trying to impress would learn the truth about him. The week after my 18th birthday, I moved into a luxury apartment in Jonathan's building, downtown. A sleek high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. It was temporary just until I started college in the fall, but it felt like a different planet compared to the house in Willow Creek. For the first few days I let myself breathe. I unpacked my boxes. I explored the neighborhood. I had dinner with Jonathan twice. Awkward but genuine conversations where we tried to fill 18 years of silence. Then the attacks began. On Tuesday, March 18th, I received a call from my high school principal. Victor had contacted her, claiming I was emotionally unstable and fabricating stories about my family. He suggested I might need a psychological evaluation before graduation. He wanted to brand me crazy. The principal thankfully knew me well enough to be skeptical, but the call still shook me. On Thursday, an email arrived from Front Range University's admissions office. Subject line: clarification needed. Dear Miss Hayes, we have received information suggesting inconsistencies in your financial aid application. Specifically, concerns have been raised about your family situation and guardianship status. Please contact our office to schedule a meeting before your enrollment can be finalized. Deadline, April 1st. He was trying to destroy my future. To cut off every path I'd worked so hard to forge. I stared at the email for 10 minutes before calling Jonathan. He's trying to destroy my future, I said, my voice tight. He can't hurt me directly anymore, so he's going after everything I've built. Jonathan was quiet for a moment. Sarah Jenkins will handle the university and the principal. Victor is digging his own grave, Elara. He just doesn't know it yet. And we're about to hand him the shovel. What do you mean? I asked. The gala is Saturday, he said. He'll be there to accept his award. And so will we. I didn't understand yet, but I would. Victor wasn't just going to lose. He was going to lose in front of everyone who mattered to him. The 15th annual Mountain City Chamber of Commerce Charity Gala was the social event of the spring season. I learned this from Jonathan, who explained it over dinner on Friday night, the eve of the event. 400 guests, he said, cutting into a steak. Business leaders, investors, city officials, everyone who matters in Mountain City's commercial real estate world will be there. And Victor, he's being honored as Developer of the Year. Jonathan's smile was thin. An award he's been campaigning for since 2009. It's the validation he's always wanted. Proof that he belongs among the city's elite. I pushed my salad around my plate. So, we're going to take that away from him? No. Jonathan set down his knife and fork. We're going to let him take it away from himself. All we have to do is show up. The gala was being held at the Four Seasons Hotel downtown in the Grand Ballroom. Black tie, champagne, a silent auction benefiting children's literacy programs. And Jonathan Reed was the primary sponsor, having donated $500,000 to the cause. As lead sponsor, I give the opening remarks, Jonathan explained. I have about 10 minutes on stage before they start handing out awards. What are you going to say? I asked. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. The truth, Elara. So, just the truth. I thought about Victor, probably at home right now, rehearsing his acceptance speech, practicing his humble smile in the mirror, imagining the applause, the handshakes, the photos that would appear in the Mountain City Business Review. He had no idea what was coming. What should I wear? I asked. Jonathan smiled. A real smile this time, warm and paternal. I had something delivered to your apartment this afternoon. Consider it a birthday gift. Saturday, March 22nd, 7:30 p.m. The navy blue gown fit perfectly. Floor-length silk with a modest neckline, elegant without being flashy. Jonathan had chosen well. We arrived at the Four Seasons together, his hand steady on my elbow as we walked through the gilded lobby. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light across marble floors. Well-dressed couples mingled near the bar, their laughter echoing off high ceilings. I'd never been to anything like this. My world had been coffee shops and high school hallways, not ballrooms and champagne flutes. But my chin high, my shoulders back, I walked in like I belonged. Like I had been born for this. Because in a way I had. We entered the ballroom at 7:04 p.m. I know the exact time because I checked my phone, wanting to remember every detail. The room was stunning. Round tables draped in white linen, centerpieces of white roses and eucalyptus. A stage at the far end with a podium and a massive screen displaying the Chamber of Commerce logo. And there near the bar stood Victor. He wore a tuxedo that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. Brenda was beside him in a red dress, laughing at something one of the investors said. Victor held a champagne flute, gesturing expansively as he told some story about a recent deal. Then he saw me. His champagne flute froze halfway to his lips. His eyes, wide with disbelief and a dawning horror, darted from my face to Jonathan's, then back to mine. The color drained from his face so fast I swear I could almost see it happen. He excused himself from his group and strode toward us, his expression murderous. "What the hell are you doing here?" he hissed. "I was invited," I said, my voice cutting through the rising murmur. "My father is the lead sponsor." Several heads turned at the word father. Phones appeared in hands. Someone whispered. Victor's jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. Victor had never been good at controlling his temper, especially after a few drinks. Brenda appeared at his elbow, her face tight with alarm. "Not here, please." He shook her off. "No. Everyone needs to know what's happening here." He pointed at me, his finger trembling with rage. "This girl is not my daughter. She's the product of my late wife's affair. A bastard I was forced to raise for 18 years. Gasps rippled through the room. Murmurs exploded. I saw at least 3 phones rise, cameras pointed in our direction. "I gave her a roof over her head," Victor continued, his voice rising. "I fed her. I clothed her. And this is how she repays me, by showing up here with him." I didn't respond. I didn't flinch. I didn't need to. Victor was doing all the work himself. She's a liar and a manipulator just like her mother was. Sophia fooled me for years. And now her daughter is trying to do the same thing. Don't believe a word she says. The ballroom had gone quiet. Even the string quartet had stopped playing. I felt Jonathan's hand on my shoulder, steady, reassuring. "Are you finished?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, yet it cut through the shocked silence. Victor's face was red now, veins visible at his temples. "I'm just getting started. You think you can ruin me? You're nothing. You've always been nothing." I looked at him, really looked at him for what might be the last time. "I don't need to ruin you, Victor. You're doing that all by yourself." From the corner of my eye, I saw Jonathan walking toward the stage. It was time. The MC, a silver-haired woman in a black sequin dress, tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please. It's time to begin our program. Please welcome our lead sponsor and keynote speaker, Mr. Jonathan Reed." Applause filled the ballroom. Jonathan climbed the steps to the stage with the easy confidence of a man who had addressed thousands of audiences. He shook the MC's hand, adjusted the microphone, and smiled out at the crowd. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began. "The Mountain City Chamber of Commerce Charity Gala has raised over $12 million for children's literacy programs over the past 15 years. That's something we should all be proud of." More applause. Victor had retreated to his table, his face still flushed, Brenda whispering urgently in his ear. "Tonight, I want to talk about something personal," Jonathan continued. "About family. About the choices we make and the consequences that follow." A ripple of curiosity passed through the crowd. This wasn't the typical sponsor speech. This was a reckoning. 20 years ago, he said, I made a choice that I've regretted ever since. I walked away from someone I cared about because I thought I had better options. I didn't know then that she was carrying my child. The whispers intensified. I saw heads turning, searching for context. 6 months ago, I received a letter from a remarkable young woman. She had spent 2 years researching her own history, gathering evidence, building a case. She did this not for revenge but for truth. For the right to know where she came from. Jonathan looked directly at me. "That young woman is here tonight. And I'd like to introduce her to you not as a secret, not as a scandal, but as my daughter. He extended his hand toward me. Alara, would you join me on stage? The walk to the stage felt like it took an hour. It felt like an eternity. Every single eye in that room for 100 pairs, burned into my back, followed my every step. I heard whispers. Reed's daughter? Who is she? Did he say 18 years? I climbed the stairs and took Jonathan's hand. He pulled me gently to his side, facing the crowd. This is Alara Hayes, he said, his voice booming with pride, or as I hope she'll allow me to call her someday, Reed. My daughter. The applause started slowly, then built. Not everyone clapped. Some were too stunned, others too busy processing. But enough did that the sound filled the room. Alara spent 18 years in a household that didn't want her, Jonathan continued. She was told she was a mistake. She was denied basic support while her stepbrother received everything. She paid for her own SAT registration by working at a coffee shop because the man who was supposed to be her guardian refused to give her $200. I saw Victor's table. His face was ashen. Brenda had her hand over her mouth. The other guests at their table were leaning away as if Victor's disgrace might be contagious. Despite all of that, Jonathan said, Alara graduated with a 3.9 GPA. She scored in the 96th percentile on her SATs. She earned a partial scholarship to Front Range University. She did all of this alone. Without help. Without support. Without anyone telling her she was worthy. He turned to me, his eyes glistening. I missed 18 years of your life, Alara. I can't get those back. But I can promise you this. From today forward, you will never be alone again. I couldn't speak. My throat was too tight. So I just nodded and squeezed his hand. The applause was deafening. Jonathan gestured toward the side of the stage where a woman in a tailored gray suit stood waiting. For those who might question the validity of what I've shared, allow me to introduce Sarah Jenkins, senior partner at Jenkins and Associates. Sarah stepped forward, her presence commanding immediate respect. She was in her late 40s, with sharp features and the composed demeanor of someone who had spent decades in courtrooms. Good evening, she said into the microphone. I have in my possession the following documents. First, a notarized letter written by Sophia Hayes Sterling on August 15, 2009, attesting to Jonathan Reed's biological paternity of her daughter, Alara. Second, DNA test results from Precision DNA Labs, dated November 8, 2023, confirming a 99.97% probability of paternal match between Mr. Reed and Miss Hayes. She held up a folder, the same folder Jonathan had shown Victor a week ago. These documents have been authenticated and are available for legal review. There is no ambiguity here. Alara Hayes is Jonathan Reed's biological daughter. The room buzzed with reaction. I saw a reporter from the Mountain City Business Review scribbling furiously in a notebook. Phones were out everywhere, recording, texting, posting. Victor's table had become an island of silence. The other guests had physically shifted their chairs away from him. No one wanted to be associated with what was unfolding. One more thing, Sarah added. I am also in possession of financial records indicating that Victor Sterling, as trustee of Alara's inheritance from her late mother, withdrew $47,000 from her trust fund over a 5-year period. Not just an emotional betrayal but a financial crime. Legal proceedings to recover those funds will begin Monday morning. Victor shot to his feet, knocking over his champagne glass with a deafening clatter. He didn't say a word. He just turned and stormed away. He didn't get far. Victor made it about 10 steps toward the exit before someone called out, "Running away, Sterling?" He stopped, turned. His face was a mask of barely controlled fury. "This is a setup," he shrieked, his voice cracking with desperation. "Jonathan has been trying to destroy me for 20 years. He's using that girl to finish the job." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. A few people looked at Jonathan, then at me, then back at Victor. "The DNA test is fake," Victor continued, striding back toward the stage. "The documents are forged. This is all a lie designed to humiliate me." Jonathan didn't flinch. Precision DNA Labs is one of the most respected facilities in the country. Their results have been used in thousands of legal proceedings. Are you suggesting they're part of my conspiracy? I'm suggesting you paid them off. And the letter from Sophia? Your own wife? Is that forged too? Victor's mouth opened, then closed. He had no answer. "You called my daughter a bastard in front of 50 witnesses, Jonathan said, his voice dropping to something cold and dangerous. "You admitted publicly that you knew she wasn't your biological child and that you resented her for it. You did that before I said a single word." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. "Everything that's happening to you tonight, Victor, you brought on yourself." Someone in the crowd shouted, "What about the trust fund money?" Victor's face went pale. That's a private matter. $47,000. Another voice called out. From a child's inheritance. That's theft. The tide had turned. I could feel it. The room, which had seemed so hostile moments ago, now hummed with a collective righteous indignation. Brenda, pale and shaking, appeared at his side. Victor, we need to leave. Now. This time he didn't argue. They fled, two disgraced figures melting into the shadows, leaving their table a stark, empty monument to their spectacular public downfall. The Monday after the gala, Sarah Jenkins filed suit in Mountain City County Court. Case number 2024 CV0892. Plaintiff, Alara Hayes. Defendant, Victor Sterling. The complaint was straightforward. Breach of fiduciary duty, misappropriation of trust funds, and failure to properly manage assets held for a minor beneficiary. We were seeking full recovery of the $47,000 Victor had withdrawn, plus interest at 8% annually, plus attorney's fees. The evidence is overwhelming, Sarah told me during our meeting that afternoon. Her office was on the 17th floor of a downtown high-rise, with views of the mountains to the west. Bank statements, withdrawal records, signed authorizations, all in Victor's name. And we have your testimony about what you actually received. Nothing. What happens now? Victor has 30 days to respond. He can settle or he can fight. But fighting means discovery. And discovery means we get access to all his financial records. She smiled slightly. I don't think he wants that. I thought about the email Jonathan had shown me, the one where Victor asked his lawyer about cutting me out of the will. If that email existed, what else was hidden in his files? There's something else, Sarah continued. The university situation has been resolved. I spoke with the admissions office this morning. They've reviewed the concerns Victor raised and found them baseless. Your enrollment is confirmed. Relief washed over me. Thank you. Don't thank me, Alara. Thank yourself. You built an impeccable record despite everything working against you. Victor's accusations only made him look petty and vindictive. I left Sarah's office feeling lighter than I had in years. The legal process would take time, months probably, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. Victor had spent 18 years making me feel powerless. That was over now. Victor's lawyer called Sarah on April 10th, 3 weeks after the lawsuit was filed. They want to settle, Sarah told me over the phone. Full repayment of the $47,000, plus $8,500 in accrued interest, plus our legal fees of $12,000. They're also agreeing to transfer the remaining balance of your mother's trust fund immediately. I did the math in my head. That's over $200,000. $200,500 to be precise. And they're not contesting anything? No discovery, no depositions, no trial. Why? Because Victor can't afford the scrutiny. The gala was a disaster for him, professionally and personally. His partners at Sterling Reed have been distancing themselves ever since. A prolonged legal battle would only make things worse. The settlement was signed on April 15th, exactly 1 month after my 18th birthday. I didn't attend the signing. I didn't need to see Victor's face as he wrote the check. I didn't need his apology, which according to Sarah, he didn't offer anyway. What I needed was closure, and that's what I got. The money was deposited into my account 3 days later. I stared at the balance on my phone screen for a long time. $200,500. It wasn't about the money really. It was about being seen, being acknowledged, being told finally that what happened to me was wrong. Victor had spent 18 years treating me like I was worthless. Now he had paid, literally, for that mistake. Jonathan took me to dinner the night the settlement money arrived. A quiet Italian restaurant in Lodo, the kind of place with white tablecloths and candles flickering in wine bottles. I want to pay for your college, he said after we'd ordered. All of it. Tuition, housing, books, everything. I set down my water glass. I appreciate that, but no. He looked surprised. Why not? Because I've spent 18 years proving I don't need anyone. I'm not going to start depending on someone now, even you. Alara, I'm your father. It's not dependence. It's family. I know. I reached across the table and touched his hand. And I'm grateful you're in my life. But I need to do this myself. The trust fund money, my scholarship. That's enough. More than enough. Jonathan was quiet for a moment. I could see him wrestling with it. The instinct to provide battling against the recognition that I needed autonomy. Your mother raised you well, he finally said. She did. Okay. He squeezed my hand. But if you ever need anything at all, I'm here. No strings attached. I know. We finished dinner talking about other things. His business, my plans for college, the apartment I was looking at near campus. Normal father-to-daughter conversation, or at least what I imagined normal father-to-daughter conversation might sound like. I didn't need Jonathan's money to prove I was worthy. I had already proven that every single day for 18 years. The fallout for Victor was swift and brutal. It started the night of the gala when the Chamber of Commerce quietly withdrew his Developer of the Year nomination. No announcement, no explanation. Just a brief email to attendees the next morning stating that, due to unforeseen circumstances, the award will not be presented this year. But that was just the beginning. On April 10th, the same day Victor's lawyer called to negotiate the settlement, Sterling Investment Group pulled out of a joint development project that had been in the works for 18 months. The deal was worth $12 million. According to an email Victor received which somehow found its way to the Mountain City Business Review, Sterling so wrote, "We cannot associate our brand with individuals whose personal conduct raises questions about ethical judgment." The article ran on April 15th under the headline, "Family Scandal Casts Shadow Over Former Sterling Reed Executive." Former because by then Victor was already gone. The board of directors at Sterling Reed Holdings held an emergency meeting on May 1st. I wasn't there, obviously, but Jonathan had sources inside the company. The vote was unanimous. Victor would resign effective immediately with a modest severance package and a strict non-disclosure agreement. The official press release cited personal reasons and a desire to spend more time with family. No one believed it. Within 2 months, Victor Sterling had lost his award, his biggest deal in his career. The house in Willow Creek went on the market in June. Brenda, it seemed, couldn't bear to live in a neighborhood where her every move was surely being whispered about. I didn't feel joy at Victor's downfall. I didn't feel vindication or triumph. What I felt was something quieter, something like peace. For 18 years Victor had held power over me. He had controlled where I lived, what I ate, whether I felt welcome in my own home. He had made me feel small and worthless and invisible. Now the world could see who he really was. And I was finally free. Brenda and Leo were collateral damage in Victor's implosion. I didn't plan it that way, but I couldn't pretend I hadn't anticipated it. Brenda disappeared from social media within a week of the gala. Her Instagram, where she'd posted carefully curated photos of her perfect family, went private, then vanished entirely. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd stopped attending her book club, her tennis lessons, her charity committee meetings. I didn't feel sorry for her. She had watched Victor treat me like garbage for 6 years and never said a word. Her silence made her complicit. Leo was different. He was 14, old enough to understand what had happened. Young enough that I couldn't hold him fully responsible. He'd grown up believing the narrative Victor fed him, that I was the outsider, the problem, the reason their family wasn't perfect. 3 months after the gala, I received a text message from an unknown number. "Alaire, it's Leo. I got your number from Mom's phone. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't know how bad things were for you. I should have paid attention. I should have said something." I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond immediately, to tell him it was okay to rebuild some kind of relationship. But another part, the part that had spent 18 years being invisible, needed more time. I typed back, "Thank you for reaching out. I'm not ready to talk yet, but I appreciate you saying this." He replied, "I understand. Whenever you're ready. If you're ever ready." I saved his number but didn't add him to my contacts. Maybe someday. But not today. In August I moved to Boulder. My apartment was small, a 1-bedroom unit in a complex near campus, with a view of the Flatirons from the kitchen window. I furnished it with second-hand finds from thrift stores and Facebook Marketplace. A blue couch, a wooden desk, a bed frame that squeaked when I rolled over at night. It was perfect. The trust fund money sat in a savings account, earning modest interest. I used it for tuition and rent, careful to budget so it would last all 4 years. My scholarship covered the rest. I didn't touch a penny of Jonathan's money. I didn't need to. Classes started the last week of August. I enrolled as a business major with a minor in communications. My professors were demanding, my course load heavy, but I thrived in ways I never had in high school. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who didn't know my history, who judged me only by what I showed them. I got a part-time job at a small real estate firm downtown. Not Jonathan's company, not anything connected to Victor. Just a local agency that needed someone to answer phones and organize files. The pay was modest, but the experience was invaluable. Jonathan visited once a month, always on a Sunday. We'd have brunch at a cafe on Pearl Street, talking about classes and work and the slow process of getting to know each other. He never pushed. He never tried to buy my affection. He just showed up consistently the way a father should. By October I'd made friends. By November I'd started dating a guy from my economics class, Jake, a Colorado native with an easy laugh and zero knowledge of my complicated past. I didn't tell him about Victor or the gala or the lawsuit. Not yet. That story belonged to my past and I was building something new. For the first time in 18 years, I woke up every morning without dread. I woke up with hope. 6 months after the gala, Victor sent me an email. My finger hovered over the delete button. Part of me just wanted to burn it, to pretend it never existed. His name in my inbox felt like a violation, a reminder of everything I'd worked to leave behind. But curiosity won out. "Alara," it began, "I know I have no right to contact you, but I've had time to think about what happened, and I realize I owe you an explanation. Maybe even an apology. I'd like to talk if you're willing. Sincerely, Victor." No dear. No, sincerely. No acknowledgement of the specific harm he'd caused. Just a vague gesture toward reconciliation, as if 18 years of cruelty could be erased with a single email. I didn't respond directly. Instead, I called Sarah Jenkins. "I want to send him a message through your office," I said. "Something official. Something final." She understood immediately. The letter was sent 3 days later on Jenkins and Associates letterhead. "Mr. Sterling, Alara Hayes has received your communication dated September 22nd. She has asked me to convey the following response. You had 18 years to treat me with basic human decency. You chose not to. You knew the truth about my parentage and used it as justification for neglect and emotional abuse. You stole from my inheritance. You attempted to sabotage my education and my future. I am not interested in your explanations or your apologies. I do not wish to have any further contact with you. This is not revenge. This is a boundary. Please do not attempt to reach me again. Alara Hayes." Victor never responded. I don't know if he was angry, hurt, or relieved. I didn't care. Some people deserve second chances. Victor wasn't one of them. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting someone back into your life to hurt you again. Sometimes forgiveness just means letting go and walking away. Building a relationship with Jonathan was like learning a new language. A beautiful, complicated one. We had the basics. Shared DNA, shared features, a shared desire to connect. But the fluency would take years. Our monthly brunches became a ritual. He'd drive down from Mountain City on Sunday mornings, always arriving at exactly 10 a.m. We'd order the same things, avocado toast for me, eggs Benedict for him, and talk about everything and nothing. Some days were easy. We'd discuss his latest business deal or my upcoming exams, laughing at bad jokes and discovering shared interests. He loved jazz. So did I. He hated cilantro. So did I. Small things, but they added up. Other days were harder. There were silences that stretched too long. Questions that had no good answers. How do you summarize 18 years of absence? How do you grieve a relationship that never existed? "I'm not trying to replace the time we lost," Jonathan told me once, stirring his coffee. "I know that's impossible. I just want to be here for whatever comes next." "That's enough," I said. And I meant it. On my 19th birthday, Jonathan drove to Boulder with a small cake and a card. No extravagant gifts, no grand gestures. Just the two of us in my tiny apartment, eating chocolate cake and watching the sunset paint the Flatirons pink and gold. "Happy birthday, Alara," he said. "Thanks, Dad." It was the first time I'd called him that. His eyes glistened, but he didn't make a big deal of it. Neither did I. Some things don't need words. Looking back, I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I'd never found that letter. If I'd never reached out to Jonathan. If I'd just accepted Victor's $50 and disappeared into the world. Another forgotten child of a broken home. But I did find the letter. I did reach out. And everything changed. Here's what I learned from 18 years of being invisible. First, your worth is not determined by how others treat you. Victor saw me as a mistake, a burden, a reminder of his wife's betrayal. But his perception was never my reality. I was always more than what he saw. Second, boundaries are not selfish. They are essential. Cutting Victor out of my life wasn't revenge. It was self-preservation. I don't owe anyone access to my peace. Third, family is not just blood. It's the people who show up for you, who choose you, who love you without conditions. Jonathan and I share DNA, but what makes him my father is the effort he puts in every single day. I'm a sophomore now, studying business and dreaming of starting my own real estate company someday. Not to compete with Victor or Jonathan, just to prove to myself that I can build something from nothing. Because that's what I've always done. If you've ever felt overlooked, undervalued, or invisible by the people who were supposed to love you, I hope this resonates. Because I want you to know, I see you. Your story isn't over. The people who dismissed you don't get to write your ending. You do. Thank you for letting me share this with you. Now, I have to ask. After everything, would you have responded to Victor's email? Would you have given him a second chance, or like me, would you have chosen silence? Let me know in the comments below. I truly want to hear your thoughts. And if you want to hear more stories of finding your voice and building your own future, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Until next time, take care.